Casas. Hello again.
Morning again,
Elena. Now, starting with The Independent, which puts Saudi Arabia on its front page.
Yes, their headline this morning is Saudi Arabia opens fire on civilians. Now, The Independent says their journalists are the only ones so far who've been able to speak to protesters in the eastern Shia part of Saudi Arabia, where there's a growing protest movement. Now, obviously, this is quite big news because we did say for a long time that it was very unlikely that the Arab Spring would ever spread to Saudi Arabia, where the authoritarian monarchy does seem to have such control and a certain level of popular support. But The Independent says that the Shia minority, particularly in the eastern part, has long said that they've been victims of sectarian discrimination, and now they're taking inspiration from next door Bahrain, where of course protests were suppressed using Saudi firepower, and they've decided to take to the streets. Apparently on Monday night, after an elderly man was arrested in order to try and get him to tell authorities where his protesting son had gone, there was a big protest outside of a police station, and authorities opened fire on civilians for the first time. The Independent isn't quite able to tell us if anyone was killed, but this is certainly a big development in Saudi Arabia.
Moving on now to The Guardian, it's looking at Afghanistan as we get closer to the 10th anniversary of war there.
Yes, the US and British bombing in Afghanistan started on the 8th of October 2001, so that'll be 10 years on Saturday. So there's quite a lot of commemorative reporting in today's papers. The Guardian, though, has got hold of some Ministry of Defence documents which have been classified until now, which reveal that the scale of civilian deaths in Afghanistan might be even greater than we already know. They found out there are 99 different military inquiries going on in Britain behind closed doors, so that's into 99 separate incidents in which British soldiers are alleged to have killed or injured Afghan civilians, 99 cases in which British soldiers could face criminal charges. Now, the paper says there was already shock when 25 of these types of cases were revealed by WikiLeaks cables last year. So now finding out there's almost 100 other cases is, not very good news for the British Army at all. The paper does point out, of course, the fog of war is even more confused in Afghanistan than in other places because it's so hard for soldiers to tell who actually are the insurgents and who is just a civilian. But the paper says that's insufficient excuse for all of these atrocities.
Now, the Dalai Lama was hoping to travel to South Africa. He was hoping to be there for Desmond Tutu's birthday party, but of course he was denied a visa. How has that being treated in the South African press?
Well, they're not very impressed with the government. The South African Mail and Guardian quotes Archbishop Tutu himself, of course a former Nobel Peace Prize winner, who says that the current South African government is behaving worse than the apartheid one, because at least under apartheid one expected this kind of behaviour from the government, whereas the ANC, he says, was built out of people who fought the apartheid regime, and therefore they should show solidarity with oppressed people in Tibet instead of siding with China. Tutu says that the international community supported the anti-apartheid movement, so the South African government should support oppressed people elsewhere. And the paper's editorial is even stronger in its language. They say the government has become China's lapdog. It's so desperate for investment that it's rejecting morality and ethics. Of course, China financially is hugely important in that part of the world. Huge amounts of investments in South Africa. And the paper says the government is playing into the stereotype of Afghan governments as greedy and corrupt, willing to sell their morality and ethics to the highest bidder. So very strong criticism.
Pretty hard criticism indeed. Now back to The Independent. They say Mexico is enjoying somewhat of an unconventional tourism boost.
Yes, it's widely believed that the Mayans prophesied that the world was going to end on the 21st of December 2012. Archaeologists actually think that that's probably a misinterpretation, and they just thought that there would be the end of an era and a new era would be born. But the end of the world is a bit more dramatic, and there have been blockbuster films made about this and best-selling books. Now the Mexican Tourist Board is using it to launch a marketing campaign to attract back American tourists who've been put off by fear of drug trafficking and violence. Of course, that's not really a problem down in the south, where the most tourist resorts and Mayan ruins are, but it's putting off the tourists, so that's their new tactic, to encourage people to come to southern Mexico in 2012 to get a front row seat for the end of the world.
And very quickly, surfing it making onto the curriculum in Hawaii.
Yes, The Guardian reports Hawaii's state governor announced yesterday that surfing, because it's such a vital part of Hawaiian culture, should be taught to all high school children in school. So it sounds a lot more fun than the school PE I did, at least, getting to go surfing.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind giving that a go. Thank you very much, Elena Casas, for that look at the international newspapers. And a reminder now of our top